Hello and welcome back to Jenna Gets Creative. Today I am going to be reviewing both Cemetery Boys and Lost in the Neverwoods by Aiden Thomas. I will link my blog posts with those reviews down below. Those are great if you'd rather read them or if you want to grab the book information and the purchase links for them. And I did review the second one, Lost in the Neverwoods, as part of a book tour, so there's additional information down there. Before I get on with the reviews, I would like to tell you about some giveaways I have coming up. The first giveaway that's coming up is the Let's Get Jenna monetized giveaway. This one will open once this channel finally has the watch hours for monetization, and you will be entering to win your choice of prize packs, all of which include a small original artwork by me. The prize pack options are the art supplies I've been saving to give away, the duplicate fantasy genre books on my shelf, or a custom book depository order placed on your behalf. And again, all of those will include a small original artwork by me. The other giveaway coming up is the Let's Get Jenna to 2K giveaway. That one will open once this channel sustains 2,000 subscribers for a few days, just in case it shifts. That one will be an Amazon gift card or a book depository order winner's choice. All of the prizes in both giveaways will require that you are able and willing to provide your mailing address with me privately if you win, with the exception of the Amazon gift card, which is just by email. Further details for both are in the description down below. Alright, so first let's talk about Cemetery Boys by Aiden Thomas. This came out in the summer of 2020. This is a trans Latinx fantasy story. Great book, really. This is about Yadriel and Julian. Yadriel is a trans boy in a brujex family. He was assigned female at birth, so his family expect him to be initiated, I forget the actual word they were using, as a bruja, as a witch. But of course he is a boy, so he wants to be initiated as a brujo. So his friends have done this for him separately, privately. He has come into his magic, he has been accepted by the goddess, and he hasn't told his family yet. He wants to prove himself by helping a tethered ghost cross over. And when they're off trying to do that, one of their friends goes missing, and he can sense his friend's spirit. So he thinks, well, if my friend's dead, maybe that can be the spirit that I released on my own to prove that I can do it. So they go looking, they find a ghost. It's not his friend, it's Julian. Julian was a classmate, not somebody he knew very well. And Julian has a very troubled family life. Julian lives with just his brother. His parents are dead, and he doesn't see eye to eye with his brother. It quickly becomes apparent to Julian and his living friend who's doing all this with him. What's her name? Maritza. Quickly becomes apparent to him and Maritza that Julian obviously is not the friend they thought he was, but whatever happened to Julian is probably connected. So they're trying to solve the murder mystery of Julian before Julian's ghost degrades into this tortured monster that happens to tortured souls that are here on Earth too long. Time is running out. He promises Julian that he will release him by the Day of the Dead. I'm not going to try to pronounce that in Spanish. It's a story of a trans boy trying desperately to be accepted and understood by his family. It's the story of two gay boys falling in love, even though one's a ghost. And it's the story of a murder mystery. It has excellent Latinx representation in the flavor of this is an immigrant community in California that have been in California for generations, and therefore the heritage is kind of fused and blended. The magic system here, the folklore it pulls from, Aiden created this from a blending of Latin America. It's not one particular thing. As I mentioned when I did the reacting to 1-star reviews of books I loved video, somebody critiqued it for being an amalgamation of folklore, but that's exactly what it was supposed to be. So I think it worked out really well. I I do find it funny. Like, I ended up listening to the audiobook, and the narrator speaks Spanish, very clearly speaks Spanish, had the Spanish accent, pronounced all the names in a very Spanish way. And then at the end of the book, there's an interview between the narrator and the author, Aiden. And like they're both saying Yadriel, but the narrator is saying Julian and Adrian is saying Julian. Very Anglophone. It's funny, it's quite cute. So I don't think you are wrong no matter what way you're pronouncing their names. I would like more in this world. I would like more Yadriel adventures, but I understand why it was written as a standalone. It works very good as a standalone. I think this is a very important book in this time as both, you know, person of color representation in YA, but also trans. I like the fact that it has a romantic element, but that's not the most important thing in the book. It is a fantasy book. I like the fact that it shows trans and cis gay boys together forming a relationship, and how one person, very loving, very supportive family who don't get the LGBTQ stuff, and one person with a very troubled family who completely accepts the LGBTQ stuff. Overall, I absolutely love this book. I rated it 5 stars. I highly recommend this to all fans of YA fantasy, all fans of LGBTQIA books, and everybody who's looking for something a little more diverse than fantasy has been for decades. Moving on, the second book, Lost in the Neverwoods, that was just released in March 2021, and I was on the blog tour for this one with XPresso Book Tours. So thank you so much to XPresso Book Tours for getting me on the tour, for granting me access to that free early access e-ARC. I tried to get the ARC on Edelweiss when it was first announced. I was immediately declined. Not surprised, I didn't really have a profile built up there, but I don't really have luck getting accepted there anyway. And then it went up on NetGalley, but it was region locked, only Americans could apply for it, and I'm Canadian, so I thought I was out of luck and I wasn't going to get to read this until I got to order it for myself. I don't have a physical copy because I finally got the e-ARC, and I can't justify buying another book right now when I got one for free. So, picture up on screen. This is a Peter Pan retelling. It is a Peter Pan retelling like none I have ever read before. I will say, for fans of Cemetery Boys, for people who were expecting another Cemetery Boys, this is not another Cemetery Boys. I'm not saying that there isn't a lot of Aiden in this book. I'm not saying that somebody else could have written this exact book, but it's not a book that only Aiden could have written. Cemetery Boys is an own voices, trans, exploring one's own identity, coming to terms with it, making their community accept it book. Lost in the Neverwoods does not have any openly LGBTQIA characters. There's not a whole lot of romance, but if you would consider Wendy and Peter a romance, it is a cis straight romance. So this is a YA fantasy that could have been any author's book. Again, not saying this is not very Aiden, not saying somebody else would have written this exact book, but if you came for more Cemetery Boys, if you came for the trans author writing an own voices story, this is not it. You're going to be disappointed. Besides that, it's a great book. This is Wendy and her 2 brothers went to Neverland. In the real world, they went missing. And then Wendy showed up again and her brothers didn't. This is 5 years later. She doesn't remember much about what happened. She's trying to move on. She's volunteering weekly in the children's ward at the hospital. And on her drive, she almost hits somebody. And there's this boy on the street. And he recognizes her and goes, "You don't remember me? It's Peter Pan from Neverland. You were hanging out with me there. Why don't you remember me?" And as she gets to know him again, he's trying to remind her of the time they spent together. They're kind of fallen in love, and she's slowly remembering more about her missing brothers, it turns out that something has gone wrong with Peter. He and his shadow are separated. His shadow is no longer connected to him. And because of that, he's starting to age in this world. And kids are going missing again. Meanwhile, Wendy's parents have not been doing well. Wendy's mother is kind of just a shell of herself. She talks to her sons, to Wendy's brothers, in her sleep at night, and in the daytime she's just on autopilot. Her father is this passive-aggressive jerk, and it's not clear whether he's always been that way or if he became that way after the kids went missing. But, you know, throw that on to how her mother's behaving. She has a terrible home life. I'm not sure how much I should say to avoid spoilers. I don't want to just read my post. The revelation of what actually happened when she and her brothers went to Neverland, and how this is connected to the children who are going missing and the shadow that's gone rogue. This is not a way I've ever read Peter Pan before. It's very grimdark, and I love it. I will criticize that some things were kind of glossed over, like kids are going missing, and we don't have a big focus on search parties. Like, there would be major search parties. We're not really hearing the town freaking out. Like, Wendy has to go talk to the police because she was in contact with one of the kids that went missing before he went missing. But that's about it. And also, there's, like, she has to get back into her childhood bedroom at one point in the story in order for this plot to move on. Because she has to be back in this room where she has to be back in this room that she shared with her brothers, where she would tell them Peter Pan stories from her mother, and Peter would actually be outside the window listening, you know, like actually happens in all the versions of Peter Pan. She needs to get back into this room for revelations to start happening. How this was set up in the book, this is like minorest of spoilers. She's helping her mom clean the house, and she is told to go empty the trash can in her father's study. This is a room that she's not allowed to go in. She's never been in it before, but it's not locked, it's not barricaded or anything. She goes in for the first time in her life as a high school senior who's going off to college. She's never been in this room before in her house. Like, a teenager left alone in the house is going in the room they're not supposed to go in. And this is all set up so that she can find a key so that she can test it later to unlock her childhood bedroom. There are other ways you could have had her find the key. Overall, I rated this one 4 stars, not 5 like I did for Cemetery Boys. The problem is, the last like 20-25% of this book is amazing 5 stars. Oh my goodness. Everything before that, 75-80% of this book, is just okay. There's a whole bunch of little plot holes, nothing that's big enough by itself to spoil it, but it's just eh. Cemetery Boys sold first, but Lost in the Neverwoods was written way before Cemetery Boys was ever drafted, and it shows. This is the debut author quality book, not Cemetery Boys. So I think it's unfortunate that they're being released in this order. I think a lot of people who absolutely love Cemetery Boys, between the writing quality and the LGBTQ stuff, are going to be disappointed by Lost in the Neverwoods. I hope enough people love this that it gets the recognition it deserves, because Aiden Thomas is a very good writer, and this is a very cool interpretation of the Peter Pan story. Just not a 5-star novel for me, it's a 4. If you've read either of these books before, tell me about them in the comments down below. Tell me if you would rate them the same, or if you disagree with me, tell me why I'm wrong. If you haven't, have I inspired you? Are you adding these ones to your TBR? If you're looking for more to watch, I've got some suggestions up on the left side of the screen now. Don't forget to like, comment, maybe even subscribe, and if you like living life creatively, whatever that means to you, I'd love to have you along for the ride. Bye guys!